mindset so we know that we can be the best versions of ourselves. We are the author and the finisher of our own success. So, if it's that new job you need to get, go get it. If it's to start a new business, just do it. If it's to further your own education, youth, let's make it happen. Let's strive to be great. Let's strive to evolve.
Hi Jamaica, my name is Daniel Jordan Bailey, representing the National Secondary Students Council as the Region 1 Assistant Vice President. For 2021's Youth Month, I want to see more inclusivity, youth from all walks of Jamaica engaging in virtual activities aimed at enhancing their purpose. Moreover, when I think of the word evolve, I think of metamorphosing, emerging from one stage to another while fulfilling your dream. This can be done by looking towards a certain passion or even fulfilling a certain goal. We can evolve.
Hello Jamaica, my name is Siobhan Smith and I'm the General Secretary of the Jamaica Prefects Association. The Jamaica Prefects Association, or otherwise called the JPA, is the national governing body that represents prefects, including head students of secondary schools in Jamaica. This year's Youth Month theme is Evolve, which simply means to gradually improve and become better. I implore you all to grow and evolve in your own right and shine in your own light. Happy Youth Month Jamaica, stay safe.
Growing up, we would have been told that the only thing in life that is constant is change. And for that reason, I am particularly impressed that the theme for this month is Evolve. If we are to cope with the realities that we're now facing, we must evolve.
My name is Nevada Green. I'm a part of the National Youth Council of Jamaica. The NYCJ is the umbrella organization for all youth clubs across Jamaica, which seeks to promote youth participation in all community levels and advocate for youth participation in all levels of governance. We here at the NYCJ will be doing for Youth Month our annual general meeting, which involves all community-based organizations and all parish executives, where we come together with our problems and find solutions for them. What we want for this Youth Month is for us all to evolve. We are called to evolve this Youth Month regardless of what challenges the COVID-19 pandemic presents us with. So we're going to press through to ensure that all youth voices are heard this month.
Hello youths of Jamaica, I am Orville Levy, co-chairperson of the Youth Advisory Council of Jamaica. Youth Month theme 2021, Evolve. One word with such powerful roots that if we water it, it can blossom our collective futures. As a council, we have been working to mainstream youth issues into youth policies and ensuring every youth has a voice through our youth parliamentarians. We are at a pivotal time in our lives. This is your opportunity. Take the moment. Your evolution begins today.
We're asking young people for Youth Month 2021, you need to participate. Come and show us your evolved thinking, your revolutionary ideas and your innovative action. Let us demonstrate to the rest of the country that Jamaica's youth are evolved and can make Jamaica better than what it was before COVID. Young people of Jamaica, let us evolve.
Hello, good afternoon Jamaica, and this is Tejani Christian, and I'm here today to host what is in a series of activities going on in this November, or National Youth Month celebration 2021, under the theme Evolve. And it's more than pivotal at a time where so many things are changing, so many uncertainties, but what we're saying is that we are at the right position to actually be our best selves. And so that's what Evolve is about. But today our focus will be the Youth Crime and Violence Forum, which we have some lovely panelists here. I feel so outshined by them. I'm not going to tell you many reasons why, but they're experts in their own right and feel, and so we're here to share and have a discussion and a dialogue on this topic, youth, crime and violence. And so today we have on our panel Mr. Richard Troop. I call him the man that doesn't seem to age. Because he looks young the same every time I see him, Mr. Richard Troop, and he's the Director for Safety and Security at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Welcome, Mr. Troop. I wonder because, you know, in safety and security there's a lot of cardio, so, you know, it works so. We also have Deputy Superintendent Radcliffe Gordon, who is a crime officer for Center for Investigation for sexual offenses, Sissoko, and he'll be joining us by Zoom. And here we have Ms. Claudette Hamilton, Director of Juvenile Services, Department of Correctional Services, and will also be joining us via Zoom. And beside me, we have the lovely Dr. Diana Thorburn, and I don't want to pronounce it incorrectly. I know I did it perfectly, she said. So gracious as usual, Director of Research at the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, Capri. So we know there's a lot in store for us today. And of course, we have right in the middle, the gem, Mrs. Latoya Fry-Williams, who is the Executive Director for Forward Step Foundation. It's a packed house. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. And welcome, welcome. We have a few minutes, so let's go right into it because I know everybody is excited to hear from these panelists and to hear less from me. So we'll go right into our first video, which is actually going to be done by Heart Trust. And right after that, we're going to be going into the segment talking about the overall picture of the statistic, the vulnerability. And you know, we have to start off with our gem here, Dr. Diana Thorburn from Capri. So right to the Heart video.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Thank you and welcome back, everyone. And so the first segment looks at the overall picture when we're looking at the statistics, the vulnerability. And so we're going to start off with Dr. Diana Thorburn from Capri. Speak to us. What is this overall picture of youth crime and security? I know you guys did some amazing work recently. So tell us, how is that going?
So, you know, when we talk about what Capri does, we look for evidence to support policy change, especially in needed areas. And I don't think anybody would disagree that the youth and the crime and violence situation on their own and together are a very important issue for Jamaica. And, you know, I could come here and reel off a lot of statistics. I could tell you that over 10 years between 2007 and 2017, $387 billion was spent on youth interventions, anti-violence interventions. This is about 40% of what was spent on education. So if you know, just juxtaposing those two figures, you have an idea. We're spending a lot of money. We're not sitting down and not doing anything. We still have a situation, though, where 12 to 16, age group 12 to 16 make up 5% of all arrests for crimes. 16 to 24 make up another 19%. So we're spending a lot of money and time and human resources and opportunity, and we don't seem to be changing very much. There's an argument that, well, if we didn't do these things, it would be worse. But, you know, that's not something you can ever prove. And I don't, you know, we say all these statistics, but really what do they mean?
Yes.
And I think what they mean is that we haven't yet figured out on a macro scale how to bring about change with our youth and with our crime and violence situation. On a micro scale, the individual programs that are being done can be life transforming for the young people, especially young men who are engaged in them. But we're not seeing that wholesale change where we're seeing a 5% drop in youth crime, or ages 16 to 24 going from 19% to 10%, even over a long period of time. And that's where I think we need to be focusing on is, why are we doing the same things over and over again if we're not achieving the big results that we want to get?
Dr. Thormer almost coming into the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and expecting a different result. But you know, one of the key things that I picked out from what Dr. Thorburn said is we're seeing some changes on the micro level because we see the hearts and minds that we touch every day. But why is it not translated into that macro change that we want to see, that wave that we want to see across? And I guess on an institutional perspective, we now have I'm claiming doctor on him already, DSP Radcliffe Gordon, coming from the institution. He will now be speaking on, weighing in on this topic. DSP Gordon.
Thank you very much for having us from Soka. Bring your greetings. In the same week you're having your celebration, we're having ours as a Jamaica Constabulary Force Police Week. I speak from the perspective of sexual offenses where, you know, our clientele is 70% children, that is Jamaican under 18 years old. And we see them from both sides of the coin in terms of victims, being victims, and in terms of being offenders. And, you know, yes, it's almost, as you say, a definition of insanity that we have been pouring a lot of resources, both financial and human resources, into this area, and we're not seeing the commensurate results. But, you know, this is not a fight that we can throw in our towel on. We have to just persist. One of the things in terms of on the offending side that is game changing, where we are concerned, is the passage of the Child Diversion Act, where it gives us another option as police officers to deal with, to divert some of the offenders away from the formal criminal justice system in terms of disposing of the case. So we don't charge them under that act, but we refer them to a program which, you know, it's revolutionary in its reach and how it is treated. In terms of offenses committed against children, we see where last year a total of 446 cases in 2019, sorry. And I'm speaking just solely in the KMR, that's the corporate area, because that's our primary focus in the case, because we have soakers all over the island. So 446 reports. This year, due to the pandemic and the lack of contact persons to report to, there is a decline of 365, but it's still high, and that is something that we need to treat with.
Indeed, thank you for that, DSP. And one key item there that DSP spoke to, which also marries well with what Dr. Thornburn said, is about the policy changes. And from a Capri standpoint, he speaks on the fact that, you know, the research, the evidence to inform policy, and one of those major policy changes that really helped in terms of stemming those issues that we're having in the homes or in the community is the Child Diversion Act, a very pivotal piece of legislation. And I definitely know that if I don't say a shout out to the Ministry of Justice and all they're doing and that, I will not feel comfortable. And so Mrs. Ruth Carey Lewis and all the team that's working on that, it's a pivotal piece of legislation that really looks at how do we ensure that the chances that we give to children, we don't allow them to be victimized, because again, we have to look at the future opportunities. So in youth crime and security, we have to look at not just present, but what these actions that they do or a person do to them will not harm their future. And that is the key thing about when dealing with children. And so thank you for those perspectives, DSP Gordon. At this time, we're going to be having another plug-in from our Youth Month partner feature from Proven Investment Limited, Proven Wealth.
A real estate investment trust is a property investment company. Unlike other property investments, it is traded on an exchange, similar to listed securities such as ordinary shares and exchange-traded funds. This makes it an attractive option for ordinary investors to invest in real estate. A small amount is required to participate in this asset class, rather than a large capital outlay that is required for an outright property purchase. Since REITs must pay out 90% of their rental income to investors, to expand, That leaves two main means of funding growth: selling new shares or taking on debt. As an investor of a REIT, you must keep an eye on the amount of debt incurred, as this may affect overall output. I am Dana Ashley, and we are Proven.
Thank you very much for coming back to us. And so we are going into our next segment, which our next segment speaks to government's approach to tackling crime and violence among young people. And so we're going to actually be starting off this time with the man that I say that never seems to age, or appropriately, and that is Mr. Richard Troop. He's the Director of Safety and Security here at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. So some of the approaches over the years and what you've been doing from the ministry standpoint.
And so thank you very much for having me. So good to be here, especially in the context of Youth Month. And so clearly we have to acknowledge the fact that while children and young persons are victims of violence, they are also perpetrators of violence, major cause for concern. We would acknowledge also that we would have been spending significant resources on treating with this matter, and there is a sense that we're not making the kind of headway. I want to pause because we also need to acknowledge those things that we're doing differently, and that would have had a profound impact. Certainly the work of Capri, the research that is done is critical. It is not just a how you feel kind of moment, but our action must be guided by evidence, and research is evidence. The Child Diversion Act, so that our young persons are not necessarily brought before the court is necessary, but also I want to acknowledge and celebrate the fact that we are doing a lot more in research, and so the National Commission on Violence Prevention that would have been established in 2018, the National Plan of Action for an Integrated Response to Children and Violence, another significant milestone. 2020, the government of Jamaica would have launched formally the Citizen Security Plan. These are critical pillars on which we can have the kind of conversation, we can have the kind of join up government and join up agencies to really tackle this problem. If one thing that we would have learned, let's take the Citizen Security Plan, for example. It is not, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information would have always been concerned with the evidence, the worrying sign of violence being perpetrated by children, especially within our school system. And we would have been working to try to arrest this issue school by school, region by region, parish by parish. And clearly one of the things we would have been learning from the Citizen Security Plan, anchored in that plan, is a 25 school strategy. Very strategic, because this 25 school strategy is seeking to be working in a very deliberate way with 25 schools within the zones of special operation, impacting over 16,000 children within these 25 schools, 15 primary, 9 high schools, and a CAP center within the 5 zones of special operation. It is a recognition that we can't tackle youth violence, youth crime and violence ministry in isolation of others, of other critical agencies. So the collaboration is important, the data to inform the evidence is critical, the monitoring and evaluation is critical, and perhaps one of the most critical thing, and I'm glad I'm saying this in the context of Youth Month and the Youth Forum, is that our young persons cannot be seen as beneficiary of social change, but how do we position, how they are positioned as agents of change? What is it that they need to be doing to be a part of the conversation? What is it that they are to be doing to be articulating its own agenda, plans, to the government, to civil society, organization, so that their voices can be heard, the innovation that they will bring, the thinking outside of the box kind of thing, could also be appreciated. So I would like to believe that, yes, we have a major problem, but we would have been making some significant strides as a government. Perhaps what perhaps we need to do more of is, how do we communicate these things? How do we report to the nation on the traction that our programs would have been making, the impact, so that we can be celebrating the incremental milestone as we try to achieve that big picture of a crime-free or a better situation we're managing our crime and violence problem in this country. So I'm one of the hopeful ones, my brother.
Yes, I know you are one of those evangelists. Mr. Troop, if you left him any further, I'm telling you, he's going to start his sermon. He's always a vibrant and strong believer. And one of the things about Mr. Troop and leading the program he does is it's a matter of being hopeful, even in the darkest places. It's very important. The situation does feel dismal at times, especially when, as we would say, you're in the trenches and you're there, because you see, there's a lot of talk about policy and change, and a lot of persons don't understand that we here on the platform, you have been in the trenches, you've seen it, you've lived it, you want to be a part of that kind of change. You're not speaking anecdotally about a few wishes or an opinion, but actually have been there and have worked to want this change to happen. And so we actually now swing back to the JCF, to Sissoko, DSP Gordon, on your thoughts, weighing in on some of the programs or projects that the government is doing through Sissoko.
Yes, thank you very much again. One of the things that I want to join the other members of the panel with is the need for a more joined up approach towards dealing with this issue. We at Sissoko have seen the need, and so part of our system of dealing with it is a monthly stakeholders meeting, where we meet with the Office of the Children's Advocate, the DPP, the CPFSA, and the persons from the Child Diversion Office. We have a meeting to discuss what our experiences are, what our plans and best practices in treating with it. So I'd certainly like to join with Mr. Troop in saying that all agencies need to be speaking. Just to give a little statistics on what we have experienced in terms of our usage of the child diversion policy. It came into effect about last year, March. We started using it. And at the end of last year, we had diverted 15 of children that were in conflict with the law. Up to October of this year, we're up to 38. And that's just for sexual offenses in the Kingston and St. Andrew six police areas in Kingston and St. Andrew. So you can see, and I gather that the uptake of this policy is similar across the divisions across the country. And we have not had any failures as yet. We have not got any feedback, because what we do, we refer these matters to the diversion office at the Ministry of Justice, and they design the program and take the offenders, the child in conflict with the law, through the whole program. And we have been successful so far, and the feedback is that it's well received. Even some of the more seasoned persons are actually seeing the benefit of it. So I just want to plug that whilst I'm here, and say that it's not a losing battle. The increments are small, but I think over time they will gather momentum, and we'll see the kind of change in our youth as that we desire in Jamaica.
Thank you very much, DSP. One of the things I remember when I was in undergrad, they would say to me that, remember Tijani, social change is far different from economic change or any other investment you're doing. It really does take time, because you're dealing with behavior, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with attitudes. So it's not a one-day fix. It's over time, these increments add up. And I know the anxiety is, but we spent so much money in like 5 years or so. Why is it that I'm only seeing 40? But the truth is, behavior is not the easiest thing to change. To get the kind of result. But it means though that if we've spent that amount of money and we did get some change in certain area, it could mean that we need to modify the pattern to highlight the successes, amplify the successes, and where things are not going well in some areas, reduce the approach there. And I think that's the purpose of monitoring and evaluation. Really saying we can't do a broad brush approach. We know that. Every single individual story is different. But if we have 10 programs and 2 did very well and 8 are not working so well, then maybe we need to reassess and give some more allocation to 2 and then reassess how we deliver the other 8. That is the purpose of a constant M&E framework. I hope I don't speak out of turn, Dr. Thorburn. I did you with some justice for my class. I know Dr. Rickes will be partially proud of me just now. All right, so continue. Here we have coming in from Zoom as well, Miss Claudette Hamilton. And just before Miss Claudette Hamilton comes in, I just want to also continue to remind persons that we are proudly going live this month because of all the effort of some of our major sponsors. Of course, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, the Ministry of Gender, Culture, Entertainment and Sport, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, PATH program, which is under the Ministry of Labor, HART, NSTA, Proven, Jamaica National, DIA, ILE Institute of Law and Economic, Proven Investment Wealth, PA Benjamin Manufacturing Company, and Nestle Jamaica Limited. Thank you again for all the donations that you have made thus far. We're swinging now to Zoom to Miss Claudette Hamilton. And Miss Claudette Hamilton, who is the Director of Juvenile Services. So here's the thing. A lot of the persons who've spoken so far have met our children or our young people before getting into certain part of the system. Now, Miss Claudette Hamilton's experience is when they've actually done wrong, sanctions have been made and they're in a particular or government system. What are the programs that we do at that point? Because there's still this idea that there is success at some point that is going to happen along the road. So now we have Miss Claudette Hamilton, who is the Director of Juvenile Service, coming from the Department of Correctional Services. Please weigh in on some of the approaches that the government is doing from that end.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
The crime situation in Jamaica has impacted us in every way, and as the last resort for children who have come in conflict with the law, the Department of Correctional Services, we have 2 sets of children who are in custodial care, meaning in the correctional and remand facilities, and those that are on probation or community services order in the community. How does crime impact us? In the sense that children in Jamaica right now commit offenses, non-violent and violent, from simple larceny to murder. And so we have a whole gamut and a multi-tiered kind of combination. And so the programs that we implement are rehabilitation and reintegration. For the rehabilitation programs, we do academics, we do vocational training, we do sports, and the psychosocial intervention. What we find though is that because it is the last resort for children who are coming in conflict with the law, the situations are more complex. You did mention earlier that some are victims as well as offenders. And so you find out that a child might come in for, say, assault, OVR, but then there is an abuse factor to it. And so we would take them through the rehabilitation programs, assess them, find out what it is that is lacking. And most often it is that they're illiterate, they have parental issues, they have individual issues. Some have suffered loss of a parent or a guardian or other family member and did not get the kind of counseling that they need. And so children will resort to things, to doing things, becoming part of groups for affection and belonging. And so when we approach the rehabilitation program, it's a multifaceted approach. They go through all the stages. It's not just one approach that we use.
Okay, thank you, Miss Hamilton, for that, and pointing out that there are different approaches that are used in terms of the Department of Correctional Service when we talk about juvenile services. Interesting enough, in my past life when I was much younger, I actually was a case manager, and I worked on a program that worked with the juvenile services, and so I had that first-hand experience of really when a child comes out of the juvenile services and they are now to be rehabilitated back into regular school environment, in home life, it's not an easy transition. And so many times what you have to have is case managers who actually manage the situation in terms of that transition back into regular life, to reduce the idea of recidivism, because it is real. It's very real, and dual sides to it, both as a case manager and then as a justice of the peace. When you go into some of the lockups and so forth, and you see just young persons just like yourself or younger, and they're like, okay, they're going to be probably back in a 2 weeks time when they come out. And for some, it's actually a refuge than it is really that they don't want to be there, because when they're there, they have a warm meal, a place to stay, and you're saying, but that's not somewhere to stay. It's better than what they had before. And so we see that crime, youth crime, and security is linked to very much an economic factor that we don't recognize how disempowering it is on the other side, when persons really just see it as a means to an end. It's an economic opportunity that fuels the reason for them. But I'm not a panelist, so I will leave that to the experts. And just my point in terms of some of the observation. And since we're here, a question that I want to throw out as it relates to government programs, and can I have a few persons from the panel respond to this. Do you think ZOSO and SOEs are beneficial to youth and their community in the context of youth crime and security? I don't want to say who should go first. It's a hot seat topic. But I will take Mr. Troop and then Dr. Thorburn.
So in communities where there would have been a declared zone of special operation, truth be told, many of the residents, certainly in the first phase, felt that it was important because they are now safer. Shots stop firing and things like that, and so that's an important phase of the zone of special operation. I think probably where the challenge is in the build phase, there needs to be greater concentration of efforts, greater commitment of resources, greater evidence of the partnership among the ministries, agencies, and department and civil society organization, and also the inclusion of the residents themselves as a part of that change process. We can't, it cannot be that we are going in these spaces and doing for communities. We have to engage community in the conversation as to what they see their community can be now, 1X years from now, and what is it going to take for the communities to be so galvanized and motivated to pursue that kind of direction. So, I mean, there is a place for it, honestly, yes, but it is how effective is the coordination, how effective is the communication, how effective is the join-up approach of civil society and government to really maximize. Part of what many persons see as a challenge is that you flood a space with significant police presence and resources. It's like a balloon. You blow a balloon, and if you're a child and you love balloon like I did when I was a child, which was not so long ago, if you blow the balloon and squeeze on the balloon, so the balloon will get smaller in that area, but the area has to go somewhere. It's the same thing with crime and violence and with zones of special operation. You penetrate a space for an extended period of time, but the problem is those involved in the criminal activities migrate to another space and continue their acts of crime and violence. And so, again, while we concentrate on a space, we have to also look at the big plan. And I would like to end by also saying we have to find a way too of identifying those communities that are relatively crime-free, to find out what they would have been doing differently so that we can mirror and celebrate their achievement. Because sometimes we just don't know how to get to that part. And they would have done that without state resources. Something about those communities, something about the families, something about the value system, something about their resilience. And we need to come back to those basic realities if we're going to be making that kind of impact.
Oh, wow, that's a strong plug in there. Segue off to you, Dr. Thorburn. Your thoughts, SOE and ZOSOs.
Yeah, so I want to actually pull together what you said earlier and what Mr. Troop has said, which is the economic realities and the physical spaces in which people are, and the opportunities that are presented when a space is tranquilized and the bad guys have left. So not speaking where they've gone, but what do we now do in that space? And I think that having the space cleared and you're going to build, I think there needs to be emphasis, and this could actually be happening, but I don't know about it, I hope it is. But I think there needs to be an emphasis on creating conditions that will not only prevent the bad guys from coming back, but make the good citizens, whether of the area or areas that they have gone to because they've left the area, want to come back to and keep that space safe without the need for police presence. So make it inhospitable to the people who are killing, the balance producers, as they say, and make it attractive to people who want to live normal lives, who want to live free of fear, who want to have an opportunity to have a business that's going to make some money because people in the area are going to come out on the street and do a round robin or patronize a corner store. So to my mind, that's what I think the opportunity that Azoso represents is. And when he talked about looking at what the communities that are doing, I don't think we have to look very far. I think there's some basic things, you know, cleanliness, infrastructure, taking down zinc fences. I know people see that sometimes as patronage, but those things are very important. The built environment in which people live affects how they see themselves and how they see the space around them. And what I would love to see is some of these ZOSO areas being made into model communities in whole, in creating almost sanctuaries, and then we replicate those.
Indeed. Thank you very much for that. I'm sure Latoya may want to weigh in on this from a community development perspective, having been on the ground. What are your thoughts on the SOE and ZOSO and its effectiveness on young people?
I must say that, well, I must commend them for the work that they have been doing over the past year. From my point of view, it gives a sense of, yes, we feel a little bit safe, but on the other hand, are we really safe? You understand? Because the relationship between our JCF team, JDF team, and the community is not strong enough for the community to feel really safe. So while the bad guys are away and they are here and we want to welcome them, I still feel like there is more to do to build a relationship so that even without their presence, you know, it's like they're still there because they have a relationship with the JDF and the JCF. That a trusted, well-trusted one. Yes.
Okay. And so what we're seeing very clearly here from Mr. Truth's presentation, from what Dr. Thorburn said, and even Mrs. Williams, is about they're not going to be there forever.
Right.
But when the security forces leave, what is it that we want to still be there? And someone or people or the community have to represent those concrete superstructure that we need to still be represented at the community, the values that we want to have, and of course going back even to the built environment that we want to see, reducing certain things. So what is the end game? Because they can't stay there forever. There's exhaustion, which we see that, you know, putting out every day in the sun, each 24 hours, you do get tired. And even not just the security forces will get tired, but even the community will get tired after a while. So the question is, when they exit, who keeps the structure alive that we want to see? And I think we see a lot of that coming out from there. But we're going to have another segment to answer that question. We're going to go into our final segment here. Sound like we're in school challenge quiz, which is our buzz around. Scooter, good. So here we have, we're talking about the approach for unattached and at-risk youth. I know we're going to start again. We're going to start actually this time with Latoya, Mrs. Williams, and then we go to Diana Thorburn, and then Miss Claudette Hamilton, and then we go back into some Q&A. So talking about the approach for unattached and at-risk youth, Ms. Williams, you're on the ground, Forward Step Foundation, you're seeing it every day, you're in the communities. What is going on, and what can you tell us?
I can tell you basically from what I know is that, and it's going to go right back to trust. These youth, their lack of love, hope, trust, guidance, morals, values, you know, working with them, it teaches you so much, because we have our own theoretical explanation, but being on ground with them, it's a matter of feeling like you belong, like they belong, and then they are hoping for change, but they don't know who to trust or who to turn to. And the ones that they do trust and turn to, the lack of resources for us to sustain that ongoing relationship, partnership with them, to work them through, it is limited. It is really limited. So I think this is my opportunity to say to the government that I think collaborating with CBOs who are on the ground in the community, know the needs of the community and the needs of these unattached youth, as we put them, are the ones that you should be collaborating with, because we know what is happening. And these youth are not going to just come out and talk and say, oh, this is happening or whatever, because they are scared, you know, and they don't trust they don't trust our leaders. It's sad to say, you know, but when they do find a CBO or someone that they can trust and relate to, those are who you're supposed to be getting the information from, you know, learning how you can aggressively manage this, because it is hard. It is hard for a CBO to do, as Forward Step, to do what needs to be done with lack of resources. And we are appealing to our government to collaborate with us.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. When you're on the ground, I tell you, it's a different experience from when you read it or you talk about or see it on TV. And thank you for that, Mrs. William, in terms of the partnership that is needed in terms of civil society organizations, really being on the ground. I like particularly something you said. You said the trust. And I think in any one of our literature, whether it's the young people trusting government or just general citizenry trusting government or whomever, there's just this lack of trust that exists. I think even LAPOP showed it, that many of our citizens across Latin America really just don't trust our authority. They trust some authorities more than others, some agencies, but not every agency. And so what we're seeing is that yes, there's this lack of trust, there's this void of trust that is there. But what also you said to me is there's this belonging that they want to feel, that they belong somewhere. And you know, we take it for granted, but even in a don or a gang, you know, there is a sense of belongingness that a young person does feel while they are there. If you did not feel appreciated in being in that space, you probably wouldn't stay for too long. Right. But there must be some sense of appreciation that you're getting there, whether it is negative or we see it as negative. It is to be, you know, we can discuss that another time, but what is that belongingness that they feel that they need to get somewhere? Because as human beings, we want to belong somewhere. And so that cry is also a social factor that needs to be taken into consideration. We swing now to Dr. Thorburn. Yes, in terms of unattached youth and youth at risk, I know some amazing research came out this year on some of the studies that you did relating to this part, but tying it in particular to crime, to violence.
I think the research you're referring to was a study we did called Testing.
Yes.
Where we weren't evaluating social interventions, we were trying to understand how do we know if they work. So we were not on the ground. We were looking from from above, really looking down at it. And I'd like to think that what we found actually segues into what you said, which is that the smaller NGO interventions are are much better monitored and evaluated than the big taxpayer-funded government interventions. It was alarming that some of our big interventions, Cadet Force is one of them, does not have systematic monitoring and evaluation. They can't show you data on what they have or haven't achieved. And that's just one of the ones that we studied, and there are many more out there that we didn't look at. What I would love to see is more data.
Yes.
Certainly intuitively and anecdotally, there's a sense that it is a smaller organizations and CBOs who are able to connect, who are trusted, who are certainly doing better in tracking what they're doing. We have not yet gotten to a place where we can actually say, okay, we know that the outcomes of this are, we have reduced recidivism from 10% to 5% over 5 years because of this program. We're not there yet. And I'd like to think that some of the initiatives that Mr. Troop mentioned earlier are going to take us there. But we've been waiting for a long time. We have been waiting for a long time for change, and there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think there needs to be, after we did the testing report, we, talking about it on the radio, and Cliff Hughes asked me, he said, but is this going to change anything? I said, well, even if it doesn't change anything at the governmental level, the more that citizens are aware of what's happening around them, not only taxpayer money being spent, but unattached youth, who are one of the largest demographics for either committing crime or being predisposed to committing crimes, including murders. We all live with it. We all have a stake in our environment being safer anywhere we live in Jamaica. I mean, obviously some of us are in communities that have more security guards than others, but it's something that we all have a stake in. And in sharing in a forum like this, or a Capri report that we share with the public, one of the most important things is people understanding the issue and translating that to demands, whether it's tweeting about it or through their youth organization, meeting with their MP and coming to them and saying, look, we want you to do something about this. You're our representative. There's lots of different ways of advocating for change, even on a very individual level. And if one of the changes is going to be more resources in smaller organizations, producing the data to show that that is a better approach is one of the things that we must do.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Dr. Thormer. I'm going to go over to Ms. Claudette Williams, but just before I do, one of the key points there in terms of, we see that the isolation doesn't work. Right? We definitely see the isolation does not work. And interesting enough, I won't say that, well, I am still a very committed member of the Jamaica Combined Cadet Force. But don't worry, Dr. Thormer, I feel we understand if the data is not showing, we need to do better. There is, I think sometimes when we see reports, persons started to say, oh, point fingers. You didn't do well, the statistics show this and doesn't show that. It's an opportunity for us to do better. It's about improvement. You didn't get the grade so you could swallow and say, well, I didn't do so well, so I guess I can never get a better grade after this. It is about the improvement. That is what we're about. We're improving each other. But it almost feels like agencies competing and then we are wasting, and that's where leakages come in, and that's not wise at all. So, Miss Claudette Williams, please come to us on the youth, the unattached and at-risk youth, some of the things that you're doing at the correctional services.
At the juvenile services, as I mentioned earlier, we have the custodial and the community. But the unattached youth are definitely at risk of offending. and we see them coming in. We see the children who have been expelled from school, those who would have been suspended, and then after a while they are out there, they don't return to the public school system, and so they are there unattached. That is a definite recipe for offending. And based on the fact that we know what children need, they need acceptance and recognition. So they are going to get involved in a gang that would recognize them, see them as important. There was affection, as was mentioned by my colleague there, and that group facilitates it. They want success and achievement. And what we find that the crimes committed by children right now, at the top is the larceny group, robbery, theft, housebreaking, and those are done in groups. So you see that the need for affection and acceptance through the gangs is producing those kind of effects. We see being uncontrollable. We also see sexual offenses. Right? And so children on the outside, they are unsupervised, and so they will tend to get involved with unacceptable behaviors. They also have a need for security and a sense of belonging. And they are in a state of mind that they need to be protected at all times. And so they get involved in gangs and guns, and those are some of the other offenses. And so the community on a whole, we see the parent not having the capacity to deal with them. We see them not having any engagement. They're not in school, they're not in a vocational training areas. We see children coming to us who have left primary school and has not gone back to school. What are they doing? Where are they? They are being influenced. And what is this influence? It's negative influence, because we're seeing it impacting the society. And we see them ruining their lives. But one of the mandate of the Department of Correctional Services, rehabilitation and reintegration. And therefore, when they come to us, we try as best to get them to think differently. That's the transformation that we look for. We engage them in the psychosocial intervention. We try to get them to understand that the path you're on is not the right path. We encourage them. We see some of them rising to the point where they take their CSEC and pass their exam. A few of them will move on to higher education in university. It does work. They need our support. And sometimes they behave as if they don't. But they do. Because they live in environments where they don't have love, nobody of them, and tell them that they are worth it and they can do it. So that is one of the things that we drive home. If they are committed to it and being consistent, you can achieve what you want to achieve.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hamilton, for that. Much appreciated. Some of the success stories that's come out of the juvenile services, many times we don't retweet about, but in terms of the exams, a lot of young people who are in the correctional services or in juvenile services actually go and take their CSEC subjects, and they are passing them with great grades and going on to higher education. But that's not retweetable easily. And so it goes back even to what Dr. Thornboy said about the citizen demand. One thing I know about us as a people, once we want something and we demand it, we're going to go after it. So then there is a challenge in translating rather, when the data is out and you are aware, how do we move it to citizen demand? Because government respond to people, they respond to numbers. Numbers is the voting population. So how do we ensure that that is translated into demand that we want to see? And some of the hindrance to this is what I hear Ms. Hamilton talk about, the recipe for violence. We talk about isolated program intervention. We see here lower socioeconomic background in terms of where people are coming from, and the whole sense of lack of belongingness and trust. And so it segues me right into what I want to ask you, Mrs. Williams, how do you, at the CSO level, able to break some of those barriers, to kind of break that tie that young person today say, I'm not going to be involved in this violent gang. Because Latoya spoke to me, or Forward Step is here, so I know better. How did you get to that point?
Forward Step got to that point by building a relationship, going into the homes, going into the homes, you know, building a relationship with the family, with this youth. I mean, the first thing that needs to be done is gaining their trust. So once we can gain their trust, build a relationship, and then give them some sense of hope and show them without dictating to them that this is what you need to do, then that's how you're going to get through to them. Because these children are just lack of love and hope and affection, you know. That is just it. We go into the house, we assess and see what is missing and try to bridge that gap. So once you're able to bridge that gap and you can get them to the point where they respect you and you have a relationship with them and you can, you know, share some form of advice to them and you realize that, okay, based on what I advise them to do, they're moving towards that way, then you know that you start to play upon it. You start to pull them closer. And when you do get them in, that is the easier part. Is to holding them there. That is the hardest part. But Forward Step has programs that we have developed over the years with our partners. We have partnered with a lot of different entities because Forward Step cannot do it by itself. We have to partner, and together we achieve more. So we have gone in the juvenile centers. We have trained over 3,000 youth in craft training, student engineering. So we find out what entertains them, what attracts them, what they're into, and we get them at that level. Our skills training department has actually been developed by our youths. The youth that came in, we recognize what skills they possess, and then we help develop that. And we train them to become trainers. So we student engineer, there's a student engineer came in. We developed a studio, we got him student engineering training, and then from that, he started to go into the juvenile centers, the schools, the churches, and we started to train them. So when you give them hope, a sense of belonging, let them, you know, achieve what they feel as if this is me. I can achieve because you show me one way of achieving.
Indeed.
You know, so there are now trainers who are training other youths and giving other youth hope.
But here's my challenge to you then now, Mrs. Williams. So I hear the stories, I hear you speaking about the different experiences and success, but then I think the plug-in for me would be now and the data. Where can we access this information? So it's great that you're doing this amazing work, and I'm sure it is. You were able to quote 3,000 persons just now, but then when we, just like persons in the public or whether it be an academic, Capri, whomever, they just want to know, all right, where can I get the numbers to show that this is really happening? So that is the part that we challenge ourselves on, and especially as CSOs and others, that we need to see the data.
Right. Well, for the past couple of years, we have struggled a bit with documentation, but for the past 3 years, we have recognized how crucial this is. So we have developed our tracer document, which helps us to monitor and evaluate each program, the success rate, all of that.
No, but I just looked at Dr. Thorne when I went open and she said, tracer document.
Yes. So we have a tracer document for each program that we have participated in.
That you'll be able to monitor the persons when they come into the program.
Where they are after the program, what have they moved on to. We work with a network, and if we're not able to facilitate that person after, we refer, and then we keep in contact with that network and it goes on.
That's what we want to hear. Where can we find the information? That is important.
We don't, it's not on our website.
Okay.
It's in our office.
Okay.
It's right there.
Okay, so that's the thing now. So it has to also be accessible online. Because it's not easy for a person to just come to your office.
We're a small organization.
I know, of course, I know the amazing work Forward Step is doing. But what I'm doing is strengthening the argument or asking, for example, when Capri says they want to see some data out there, first thing persons are going to do is look online. Can we pull the information, or we're going to call and contact? But we may not have the opportunity to call you or know that you exist. But if the information is online, we can easily pull it, because a tracer document like that is something to be, is more than laudable about, in terms of the fact that you're able to see the student from they enter all the way to where they are in the program. So please, let it be available for us. We want to herald your success story as well.
Definitely.
All right. So the other question I would like to really pose to the panel here is, do you think the answer is then, we've heard the stories, more social intervention, as we've spent so much money already, or should we probably do stricter penalties for perpetrators? This question came in live, hot, so I just put it out to the panel, and who would want to take it on first?
So I think there is a lot of laws in this country.
Yes.
I think our challenge is, how do we, one, enforce the laws, hold persons accountable? How do we educate our nation about the laws? How do we have a justice system that is responsive and proactive in its response to situations of this nature? I think clearly there is, if anything I don't learn from COVID, it is the recognition that there is a significant inequity in our system, and there is a clear need for support for a particular population of persons. When you look, for example, of the fact that as a ministry we have to be trying to locate 109,000 students who are unaccounted for on the 3 modalities of teaching and learning, is a major cause for concern. It is going to require a call for action for every single Jamaican. To understand that we have a role to play, we have a responsibility to ensure that our students are reconnected to teaching and learning, and that the adequate supervision is provided and care, because the learning losses is something we cannot continue to see happening and not be concerned. And so, I think the laws are there, the structures are there. We just need to improve on that, educate our nation, but more importantly, we have to be strategic with our social intervention programs. That is a clear need.
Okay, who else wants to take a jump at it?
Before I get that, I want to say just 2 quick things about the data and monitoring and evaluation, and just say for cadets, we don't know if they're doing, how they're doing. We don't. They could be doing wonderful, but we simply don't know. And we say we need data, and Capri says it all the time.
Yes.
Gathering data, especially on programs, is expensive, takes capacity, and diverts resources from doing the work. So I want to congratulate you. When you heard, my eyes did light up when you said tracer study, because if we don't do that, we're never going to know. Hart spent billions of dollars on an unattached youth program, and they don't actually know how effective it was. The Auditor General did a devastating report on it, on the wastage and the amount of funds that are not accounted for. But we don't know what happened to the youth that went through there. We don't know what happened to the youth that went through cadets. We don't know where they are in 5 years or 10 years or any time after. And it's a weakness that even those who are practitioners in social intervention will say, we see them doing well here, but we don't know what happens to them a year from now. To go back to the original question, it's not just social interventions or better enforcement of laws. There are mental health issues. Only 7% of Jamaican children's mental health needs are met right now. We live in an environment of toxic stress, which predisposes children to personality disorders, behavior disorders. They become desensitized to violence. We need to be doing a lot more on child mental health, preventative things on child mental health. Going back to what I said earlier about the built environment and creating safe physical spaces. So I won't say it's either or. I think there is a role for different strategies.
Yes.
Policing, of course, has to be one of them. Building trust between the state and communities. There's a lot more. It's not as simple as that.
It's not as simple as that. Thank you very much for that. And I think also, and even to the first point you made about the data, I think we're awakening into a culture of the importance of data.
I think so.
It wasn't in our original predisposition, so to speak. We're seeing the importance of it now, but we know that we've had many successes. The challenge is we can't say exactly where they are, but the successes are there. But we have to now really show that, because people and our citizens demand results more than anything now, that if we're spending this amount of money, you should be able to show me where the money is going. So I think we're just awakening into that culture, and because we could see a number of the success stories walking around, but anecdotally, if it is not on paper, it doesn't translate the same way, right? And so we have to really get more and more into that culture of really evidence-based, and brings us now into swinging into the pandemic. We can't leave before even asking a question about that. Where we are now, we're talking about youth crime and security, and we're still in COVID. We're not out. Do you think it's gotten worse since then, before COVID, or do you think the situation is really pretty much the same? With our young people.
So we did a study.
Yes.
We did a study on the impact of COVID on violence, and picked up on something earlier that DSP said about what has happened since COVID. The hard data is not solid, in that people are having difficulty reporting. A lot of the reporting that would have been done through guidance counselors and through the schools is not happening, simply because schools are not going on. So I would suggest that we not look to the hard data. And so the study that we did was more qualitative, and we found that there was an increase in sexual violence against young girls. Transactional sex had become even more normalized, even by people's own families, particularly as economic hardship increased. The effect that we could see was a very short space of time that we were looking at on the what I want to call the hard violence, gang violence and so on, was 0 to 0. There was almost no change, and I think actually the latest statistics suggest it's got worse. But COVID doesn't seem to have been a factor. They seem to be impervious to even a global pandemic. There are worrying suggestions, and I don't envy Mr. Troop's job at all, about what those 109,000 kids are up to. Them not being in school. We've done other research. We did a study a few years ago in the vulnerable communities of Montego Bay, and overwhelmingly the boys who are not in school are not engaged in legal activities. Being in school is one of the most efficient ways of protecting boys from becoming unattached or becoming, getting into crime and violence. It's a very negative thing to end on, but it's worrying.
Yes.
We need to get kids back in school.
Yeah,
we have to.
It's without a doubt. We have to get them back in school, and when we understand, of course, when we say school, we mean physically.
Yes,
in
the
school.
classroom.
There's a difference between virtual learning and we pivot, but there is something about the physical environment that does something to the child, that keeps them out of what persons don't. I think. Sometimes people play it down, but 1 minute in class is 1 minute out of violence.
Yes.
That's how serious it is at times. 1 minute in the classroom is 1 minute out of violence. That's how some communities operate. So you can imagine when you take away the classroom and the parent has to go to work and is a single mother or a single father, and they have to be their own supervision. What do you think happens then? Mr. True.
So I'm going to be very positive, right? And so as I speak about the 109,000 children that are unaccounted for, want to also acknowledge the fact that our Honorable Minister Favour Williams would have conceptualized an initiative, Yard to Yard, Find a Child initiative.
Yes.
That is committed to really mobilize not just our education system, but entire Jamaica around identifying, locating, and re-engaging our nation's children. We're talking about, as we speak, 478 schools will be getting additional support, 580 youth workers to complement the school-based team. We'll be engaging 108 social workers and assigning them particularly to high schools to support the school-based team, because you know, yes, we need to get them back in school. Yes, we need to get them on the remote modalities of teaching and learning. But the reality too is that there are also some significant social needs, emotional needs that while they are at home, we could be addressing. So how do we provide the wraparound services for them while they are not physically in school? How do we also motivate our parents to say, for the high school children in particular, if it is that our children will have to be vaccinated to get back to school, why are we not making use of that opportunity? Right? So how do we again just get everybody on board to ensure that we are arresting this learning loss? One of the beautiful things for me is to be watching Manning Cup and the Costa Cup now on television. Not because I'm any sports personality or love sports like that, but when you see our young boys playing together again, it is again one of the significant impact of COVID-19, you know, because now our boys are able to play, are able to laugh and talk and hug each other and celebrate. And that is the socialization that sports and physical activity would have provided, would have been a gap. And so it's nice to see our boys, and I'm hoping that that is going to be setting the trajectory for more of our nation's children to be engaged in organized sports and play and the teaching and learning.
Indeed.
So we're getting there.
Indeed. And of course you say that Costa Cup, and I have to know, plug in Manning Cup and stuff, you know. Still, you know, coming from the Jamaica College. Come on, you know, come on. There's only one school. So yes, it's important that, and one of the key points I see even coming from Dr. Thom or coming from Mr. Troop is schools are really supposed to be centers of excellence. And centers of excellence is more than just the classroom teacher, because what is happening is that the teacher cannot be only the social worker, parent, and everything anymore. We see parents who are home with kids for a year and odd, saw what teachers went through, and it's like, send them back to school. Please send them back to school. Like, you have to be social work. There's a sense of appreciation for our teachers in a different way, because teachers have to be the social worker, they have to be the guidance counselor, every single thing in one, and especially if there are schools with lower resources and so forth. So that injection of the social worker and the other facilities worker that will be there is important, because it means that it's not the teacher alone fighting the fight, and the principal and the administrator. So that's very, very much critical. And we're going to be ending an exciting evening. It's almost like we don't want to leave here. And so we're going to have final notes from each person. Who's on our panel here today. We're going to start virtually and then come back in studio. So DSP Radcliffe Gordon, final words from you. You didn't go to JC. I'm just making sure.
No, I'm a countryman. I'm a Russian. Okay. All right. Well, that's right. Yeah. I thank you very much for having me. And I sat here and enjoyed every moment of the discussion. I identified with all the points that were made, the points in relation to what happens when children are out of school. That is something that we're happy that we are back to face-to-face classes. We'll be getting what will happen is that we'll be getting more work, because all those incidents that occurred while they were on lockdown, these reports are going to be coming into our office. So we'll be inundated with work, but we'll know that these problems are being treated with. So one of the aspects that I'd like our social scientists and the panel to look into is how information technology, social media in particular, and the new paradigm for parenting, because what we see, a lot of parents are not keeping up with the race and the new paradigm in parenting, and you know, they are sort of being left behind by their own children. And how they use social media, because that's a whole new community. It was usually the local community, but now it's the internet community that the children are being are a part of. So we have to look at how that affects our the impact on our children. But once again, thank you for having us, and you know, we just want to do what is best for the nation's children.
Thank you so much for that interesting point there, the technology. How are we really, we have to look at that paradigm, because so many parents is like, listen, this is new for me, you know, I'm learning too. So something definitely, I guess that was a throw to Capri
I heard it.
to look into that as well. Miss Claudette Williams.
Thank you. And I start with the technology, because that is their domain now. And we need to find ways of getting to the youth through the technology. The children hotline has been established, and that is good. They need to know that there is an avenue for them to make reports, to seek assistance, and to deal with their issues, because sometimes that is what they can't deal with, and they resort to going to friends and other associates. Just to encourage the parent that we know there are challenges out there, and with the COVID situation, they too need to seek help when it is needed. Sometimes they hide the fact that their children are giving them trouble, but they need to seek help. And there's the CPFSA, there's the probation services, there are other organizations that are there to assist with dealing with your children and the issues that they are facing.
Thank you very much, Miss Claudette Williams. And like you pointed out, the hotline has been available. It's been open, so there are ways that you can get help. Hashtag Evolve Youth. And so we start from that end, and from Mr. True, which is the thorn amongst, my fellow thorn amongst the roses, to go ahead.
So I'd like to close by suggesting that there was a time when especially when we're doing community work good work at the community level, we see outcomes media never tell our story. And something negative happening now, we see 50 million media houses coming. In the context of what is happening in the virtual space, we do not have to rely on traditional media to be telling our stories. Can I suggest to everyone out there doing good work, young people, not so young persons, let's use the social media to tell our story. We can write our own script. We can be celebrating our own thing. And can I tell you, when you do that, you know, media come and find you and amplify your story a little more. So continue doing your excellent work for young people on behalf of young persons, and together we will make Jamaica a better place.
Indeed. Thank you. Mrs. Williams.
I would just want to take the opportunity right now to thank you guys for having us Forward Step, because I represent Forward Step strongly on the panel. It's a very most appreciated gesture. For the youths, I just want to pick up on what you just said with technology. Please don't let your smartphone be smarter than you. There's so much more you can do with your smartphone. There's so much more you can do with social media. And as the great Mr. Thorne. True. I keep
you mixing us up.
You're combining. Yes, so many times, but don't worry, I'm known for it. Yes, highlight your achievements. Highlight the positives. Stop sharing the negatives. You know, I realize that if someone dies, I can see it faster than if someone actually helped an old man cross the road. And right now, that is so important, because our youth are not connecting with our elder. Gone were the days when the village grew the children. You know, it's not like that anymore. I think we need to go back to that because we can't do it on our own, especially in this COVID-19, the online school and whatnot. We need the support. We need the support of our friends, our family members, our neighbors, our goodly neighbors, the churches, the state. So I'm looking forward to the collaboration in letting this be more massive and impactful to our nation. So, yeah.
Thank you. Forward Step Foundation laying the charge for us, and then we have now the last rose on the stage. Dr. Thorburn from Capri.
Yeah, well, thank you for having Capri and for giving me the last word. And interestingly, it's going to pick up on what the other panelists have said about using the spaces that are available to us. And what you said earlier about we're only now becoming conversant in the idea that data and evidence are important. You're absolutely right. This is a marked shift from where we're coming from. So and we have to bear that in mind as we critique some of the things that have gone before. We weren't aware. We didn't understand the importance of it. We didn't understand the language of it. And what we at Capri are trying to do is put that on a level that people can understand why the evidence matters and what to do about it. So I would encourage that the space that is available to all of us is used to demand accountability, demand results, demand what is happening with our taxpayer money and our taxpayer resources, broadly speaking, and to press in whatever avenue is your bent to pressure for change, showing that, look, we know this is happening, this is what needs to happen. And also sensitizing their colleagues and their peers to using that space. There's a great opportunity there to improve accountability and transparency.
Indeed. Thank you very much to all the panelists this evening. It was just a pleasure to be with you this Tuesday evening here in November as we get closer to Christmas. And so I thank everyone for being a part of the panel, all the panelists that have been here. It's been a riveting discussion, and some of the things we see coming, we're just saying we need to build citizen demand. We can demand more, but it starts with us. Retweet the right thing. Capri puts a study out showing some data about what's happening with our young people. Don't just scroll past it on Instagram. Retweet it. Forward Step is doing something. Retweet it. Let us build that kind of demand that we want to see, because again, that's how stakeholders, the government, states, they respond, because there is a demand for that change. But if we allow all this good work, all this great data, all this evidence and report to just fall on its face and just push that aside, we're just going to be like, oh, it's there, but we're not going to use it. Let's utilize it. It's an empowerment tool for us to do better and demand the change that we want to see. And so on behalf of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, I want to thank everyone for being a part of this panel discussion. If you haven't caught it here, you can, of course, catch it on channel. It will be posted, and it's all about Evolve. And so it's been the youth, crime, and security. Thank you also. We have our interpretation services provided to us by PAH, and they've been doing a great job in studio with us. I need to learn that as well, because I'm like, I need to do better in my own idea of inclusion. And of course, another plug-in for our sponsors who have really been wonderful in terms of what they've been contributing over so far that we've been experiencing Youth Month. MOEYI, Ministry of Gender, Culture, Entertainment and Sport, Ministry of Economic Growth, Job Creation, the PATH program under the Ministry of Labor, Art Trust NSTA, Proven, Jamaica National, DIA, Institute of Law and Economics, Proven Investment Wealth, and PA Benjamin Manufacturing Company, and Nestle Jamaica Limited. We want to thank you for your contribution that you've given to Youth Month, and I'm sure there are more activities to come in this Youth Month, so this weekend. I know the youth parliamentarians will be meeting to get prepared. So if you miss it, on Monday will be the sitting of the youth parliament, and we have a few other activities happening. On Saturday we have beach cleanup and a number of different other social activities that's going on. So if you have not been involved as yet, please reach to the Ministry of Youth, get on the social media. It's there and they're here to serve you. Thank you, everyone. My name is Tijani Christian, and I was just trying to be your host this evening. Thank you.